Emily, respond to this one. The idea that pro-choice people are saying that this is a step back for 50 years of women's rights. This is a step into the dark ages. I see a lot of people talking about, we're supposed to be progressing, we're supposed to be going forward, and now we're going back. We're going backwards. How do you respond to those people?
So I usually assume, I think it's pretty safe to assume, if they're talking about this being a step back in women's rights, they're usually referencing bodily autonomy. They're referencing the idea that women are not being allowed to make choices about their own lives, about their own bodies, and that's what is meaning we're back in the dark ages, etc. And so when I usually respond to that, I kind of do two different sides. I'll first start by pointing out that our understanding of bodily autonomy has grown in the last 150 years. And thankfully, we have started to understand and respect people's rights and especially women's rights far more in these years. And I have no interest in going back to the dark ages, so to speak. I'm glad that our understanding has grown, our understanding of consent to sex, our understanding of all these kinds of things. But there are limits to bodily autonomy. In other words, we're going to end up down the sovereign zone track of bodily autonomy. There's two kind of bodily autonomy arguments. If you're familiar with ERI material, we talk about this a lot. The sovereign zone category and the right to refuse category. Right here, what we're really talking about is sovereign zone. The idea that someone's body is their sovereign zone. They can do anything they want with anything inside of their body would be kind of the standard pro-choice argument there. And so what I want to do is point out to the pro-choice person that I agree that bodily autonomy is an incredibly important concept, but that I don't agree that you can do anything you want with anything inside of your body. And as a matter of fact, most pro-choice people don't actually agree with that premise either, if they think it through for more than 2 seconds. Most pro-choice people think that there should be a restriction on abortion. We know statistically 72% of pro-choice people think that abortion should not be available for all 9 months of pregnancy. But if it's true that your body's your sovereign zone, you can do anything you want with anything inside your body, then that would be inherently contradictory to the idea that there should be a restriction on abortion. Because after all, at the end of pregnancy, those last few months, when a pro-choice person says we shouldn't have legal abortion, the fetus is still inside the woman's body. And so there's a little bit of an issue here that they're making an inconsistent argument. And I'll try to point that out to them in the least snarky way possible. My goal here is not to be the queen of snark. My goal is to just point out that they're being inconsistent and help them think a little more clearly. And so I want to drop a link in the chat now to our bodily rights landing page. There are more places that I can go after the sovereign zone argument. There are kind of further implications besides the idea that abortion should not just be restricted. If my woman's body is her sovereign zone, then she should be able to have an abortion at any time. There are some further implications there. And so I just dropped a link in the chat to that landing page where you can learn more about sovereign zone arguments and kind of go down what are the other implications of that view? What are the other things I would start pointing out to a pro-choice person? The second thing that I would also do in kind of responding to this dark ages idea, after I've talked about the importance of bodily autonomy and the fact that there are limits, however, on bodily autonomy, is I would just point out that it is precisely because we've come to a greater understanding of equality in these last few years that many young people have been driven to become pro-life. My pro-life stance is grounded in being pro-equality and anti-violence against innocent people, which are quite frankly very new progressive concepts. And I'm not alone in that. Organizations like POW, the Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising, have proved that being progressive can be very, very easily aligned with being pro-life. And I have seen tons of young people, even just last week when I was on my trip in Michigan with Protect Life Michigan, a lot of the people that I met and worked with there are active members of POW. And I got to see so many people my own age who identify as progressives and are also really excited about being pro-life. And so it is very congruent with progressive values and all of the things that we've learned in these last 50 years to be pro-life. So to say that living in a pro-life future means that we have gone back to the dark ages just doesn't make sense on a lot of levels.